All right, so Hoozuki no Reitetsu season 2.
Ha! Well,
Wow. What does that laugh for?
I mean, so I will say I'm looking forward to your review of this
Okay, well.
because I did not watch it.
Well, you should because it's good.
Well, here's the thing. I started watching it,
But
I was bored out of my mind.
whoa.
I'm sorry.
You just don't get the artistry, the Japanese lore,
Yeah.
the deep insights from the culture.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm not. Yeah, no, you're actually that is correct.
Anyway, so
Well, let me express why I feel that way, and then I'll let you guys
all
take it
right,
from
go
there.
ahead, haterade.
It's not hate. I have no hate for the show. I have an observation,
Oh.
which is that I personally, as I mentioned, was bored out of my mind watching it because I had no idea what was going on. So now that being said, that's not necessarily a fault of the show, although I guess it could somewhat be. It's basically that this show requires that you either know a lot about Japanese lore or are a huge fan of like slapstick, self-referential humor. And I am neither of those two things. So it just was not at all for me. That being said, it's well made, it's well put together. I can tell that if you are a fan of those things that you will absolutely love this show, but I will also say that it is absolutely not for everyone as expressed by myself.
As many things are not for
Yeah.
everybody. But so the first thing I would say is that this anime had a studio switch in between the first and second seasons.
Yes.
The first season was done by Wit Studio. Second season was done by Studio Dean. So, Mandy, did you notice any kind of difference in the animation personally?
I did notice a difference. It's not huge. Like, it's not like, I think I like the animation better with Wit Studio. But it wasn't such a massive difference that it ruined the show for me.
Yeah, I mean, it has been a while since the first season came out because the first season came out in
it has been a while.
2014. So there was like a 2.5 year gap or so between the two seasons. So it's a little hard for me to go back and look at it, but I think that this anime is trying to draw its art style from like, if I had to describe it as anything from Japan, it would be almost like old Japanese scrolls or like old style Japanese artwork. So
I think
Yeah.
definitely the color choices in the entire anime is based on like Buddhism, which is what the entire show is about. And because it's very, very brightly colored, there's lots of red, and so yeah, you definitely get the feeling of like an old anime. Oh, not old, like what it's based off of, like mythology.
Yeah, it looks like those old scrolls of,
Yeah.
that you'll
Are they
see if you go.
called ukiyo? Is that what I'm thinking?
ukiyo-e is like wood block
Oh, yeah,
printing.
that's right.
I'm not sure what the art style is called, but it's trying to. So the whole anime's concept and the comedy and everything is drawn from Japanese lore and folk tales and whatnot. So it only makes sense that the art style is drawn from a similar place, and so I applaud them for that artistic choice. Some people might watch it and think that looks weird, but it's completely intentional.
Oh, definitely.
So that's a place to start. Honestly, the first and second seasons of this show aren't very different. Like they are.
No.
There's very little difference between the two, except for the stories and lore and stuff that they're talking about.
I would definitely say if you liked the first season, you'd probably like season 2. But if you are not a fan of season 1, then you would not like season 2 because they don't do anything any massive changes.
I would say that if you took the 24 episodes from both seasons, scrambled them up, and just spit them out, I would not sure I could tell you
Exactly.
which was from what season. They're almost identical in style and taste.
Yeah, except maybe there's a slight animation difference. You might be able to tell if you put them up like together. But yeah, story-wise, you can't tell.
So just launching us off, it's the story of I guess he's like an ogre called Hoozuki, who is the administrative servant to King Enma Diol, like the great king of hell Enma, who is in a lot of anime, honestly. Like he's in Dragon Ball, and in a number of other things. But he is really the man who passes judgment upon you when you die in Japanese lore. And, you know, there are like those scenes in Dragon Ball where like Frieza's sitting there in front of him and Cell, and he's, you know, condemning Frieza to hell or whatever. But so we've all seen him in different forms. He certainly doesn't look the same as he does in other anime as he does in this one.
Well, he kind of looks like the dude from Dragon Ball.
He's smaller.
Yeah, I guess so. He's still really big.
He's got like his big head and his big facial hair.
Yeah.
But this story is really like more about hell than it is about Hoozuki in general. Hoozuki's sort of like your tour guide, I feel like, that takes you through hell. Like there's a lot of discussion about like there'll be like a new servant and he'll tour them around and show them all the different places that people are tortured and all the different like weird facilities and restaurants and things like that exist in hell, and takes you through all the different hells, the cold hell, the hot hell, the boiling hell, the hell where the perverts go. Crushing hell. Oh, are you a fan of Crushing Hell?
I'm a fan of pretty much all mythologies, so I've already knew a lot of these stories and folklores that were introduced.
Okay, so in the anime is, if I'm not mistaken, every episode is split into two halves. Like every one of them is basically 2 10-minute long stories that are just like short stories. So that's the overview. It's like here is some comedy that is funny, especially to Japanese people, because it is based off of stories that they've been hearing since they were children. So did you have some particular like favorite spots in the anime, Mandy? I know you were very responsible and took quite a lot of notes.
I did take a lot of notes on like every character.
Oh, okay. Well, let's go for it.
First of all, I just want to say overall, I really enjoyed this anime. I liked season 1, so of course I knew that I was going to at least like season 2. I don't know which one I like more. I still think I like season 1 more than 2. But some of my favorite parts were, I loved there's one episode that is very meta in its content, and that was the one with Chun, where she was the like manga was based off of her, and all of the like otaku demons were talking about her, and because Hoozuki's like, you know, that's like an actual person, right? That this manga is based off her, and then he went and showed them to her, and she's like this crazy insane woman, and who's very violent. And the fun thing about that is they kind of mention it, like they kind of get a little bit meta with it when they're kind of like, you know, there are all these anime, mangas, and games that are based off of actual like characters, actual people, actual like mythological characters, but people never bothered to look into it. And so when they go back and like look at like history, and they're like, oh, this person's awful. It's kind of funny that they did that, especially in this show where everything is based off of some folklore or mythological creature.
Yeah, pretty much everything. Yeah.
And also, I love the episode with the dogs. That's like my favorite.
Oh my god, the dogs.
Shido is so cute, and I love him.
He is the shit, absolutely. So
Yes.
yeah, I mean, like Shido is he's the white dog from Momotaro, the story of Momotaro, which is basically the first piece of folklore that you're introduced to in the first season, where it's Momotaro, the pheasant, the monkey, and the dog that all help Momotaro overthrow the ogres that are threatening like the local town, whatever. That's like the story of Momotaro in its like short form. So yes, you're right. The dogs are super cute. I love Shido.
Yeah, I love that episode, especially when Shido, they're going like, oh, I'm a Shiba, and then there's the corgi. He's like, yeah, I'm a corgi, and they're like, Shido, what are you? And then he just like, there's this huge pause, and then he just cocks his head, and then he calls up Momotaro, and he's like, what am I? I don't know what I am. And Hoozuki's like, you might be a baby polar bear. And he's just like freaking out, having like an identity crisis. Like, I don't know what I am.
And Momotaro and him are fighting, and he hangs up on Momotaro, who is like who has completely abandoned his role as an ogre fighter and is like a medicine man now, like grinding up herbs and shit.
Yeah, he's working in Shangri-La. Yeah.
So That was one of
he was
my
he was
favorite
like,
episodes.
hey, yeah, he was like, hey, Shido, just make a really loud noise right now. And she was just like, bark. And he's like, see, you're a dog. And she was like, oh, thank you. I'm a dog, everybody.
It's like, well, maybe I'm a prairie dog.
Oh,
like-
yeah, that was right.
It's like, Shido, place your paw over your heart and ask yourself, do you really like hiding in holes or whatever he said? And he's like, no, I don't. I guess I am a dog. Shido is he's so dumb.
Every time he shows up, I smile because I love Shido so much. He's
There's
so cute.
there's the episode where they're having the snowball fight with the cold hell and the hot hell, and instead of fighting with snowballs, they're fighting with like sharp icicles because it's hell. Right?
Wasn't there like a frozen banana?
Yeah, Hoozuki's got 2 frozen bananas that he's fighting with, and Shido, the dog again, of course, is like, the pheasant and the monkey's riding on the pheasant and they're like bombing the other team with icicles, and Shido is hiding in the snow and he's totally blended into the snow and he just like jumps up and bites people and then hides again. It's pretty funny, yeah. I love that.
I love it. Whatever. There's one part where it was like one of the episodes where they were talking about nursery rhyme, or not nursery rhymes, but like old like children rhymes. Like they're going through the one with the tanuki and the rabbit. And then they went to the one about the priest who puts a cat in a bag. I can't remember, like puts him in a sack and kicks him. And then Hoozuki's like thinking about Shido, and he's like, he always sings the Momotaro song, and then has like a little image of him like singing, like walking and singing. He's like, but he always gets the 5th verse wrong. And like it's just Shido just like making up the lyrics. It's really funny. He's so cute.
Shido is probably the cutest character.
I think the only other character that might be my favorite is the rabbit. I love the rabbit.
Oh God,
so
he's so violent.
But he also like forgets that, like he actually like goes back to being a rabbit sometimes, and it's so cute. He's like, oh, I must have fallen asleep. He's like this cute tiny little rabbit, and then he just gets up and starts beating people with oars.
He reminds me a lot of of course, the rabbit from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, because
yes,
it's like a vicious killing rabbit. But I think he's really supposed to be the rabbit on the moon that pounds the mochi or whatever. But
he's from the story Kachi Kachiyama, which is the one with the tanuki. And I think they had that episode where they talked about his backstory.
I'm going to yield to you on Japanese folklore, I think. I think you've read a lot more of it than I have.
I do. I'm like the mega nerd.
Nerd alert. We need to have that drop from Austin Powers. Absolutely.
You do. You need that drop just for me.
Yeah, it's true. So some other favorite episodes. Just an example, like this is a tough anime for people to watch. If you were to rank this in like high context on culture, it will be super high, which is why I think it's very hard for people to understand it. And there's the episode in season 2 where Enma throws his back out, just to give you an example. And they're trying all kinds of things to help his back, but the doctor's out of town, and so Hoozuki's like doing acupuncture, but he's just hurting Enma even more because Hoozuki's kind of like a tough, violent type character. And eventually he decides that he's going to bring like Raiol, like the god of thunder or whatever, or the god of lightning, to come down and electrocute the hell out of Enma. So and everybody has seen this god from different games and things where he's like a thunder god, and he has like the thing behind him that are like little orbs, and they go in a circle behind him. And there's a thunder one and there's Kaminari, and then there's like I guess lightning is Inazuma, but I don't think that's his name in mythology. And he electrocutes Enma, who's lying on his stomach. Then Hoozuki kicks him and fixes the disc in his back, and it fixes Enma. But when Raiol is leaving, they say "Otsukare-sama deshita," which is like where a lot of the high context comes from. So in that one scene, you have who the hell is the thunder god, and I found it actually funny that they both looked at him and were like "Otsukare-sama deshita," because that is so deeply ingrained in Japanese culture.
Yes. Yeah.
I had to.
This is a really hard anime to judge because if you're like me and you've read these stories, then you're probably going to really enjoy it because they also take the folklore and then at the end of like where the story ended, they show like where these people in the folklore ended up. And that's kind of fun, like especially the story about Jigo Kodayo, which was the woman who ended up in hell because she was very arrogant and beautiful, and she was very self-centered, and she was awful to people. And when she ended up in hell with Enma, he sentenced her to walk around with this kimono that was made out of all of these tortured souls or tortured souls from hell, and it was supposed to excuse me, be a punishment for her. But and then that's like where the story ends in the folklore. But then they show it in Hoozuki, where instead she's become an attraction, and everybody gathers around to see her because she's so beautiful and elegant. So it's kind of stuff like that. That's like, if you get it, you're gonna enjoy it. If you don't get it, you have no interest in folklore, you're probably not gonna enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just completely confused at times.
Definitely.
Some of the places though where I think people can enjoy the show one way or the other, aside from like the dog episodes, because everybody can enjoy that. But
yeah,
there's like this. There are the scenes where Hoozuki will be giving a tour of hell, and he'll be walking you through the different areas where people are tortured. So there's like it's really early, like it's in the first episode, which I haven't watched in a long time. But
is it the burning hell one?
It's the one where there's like where the people are being like dropped in boiling water, and he'll take you to, you'll get to go to a place in hell. He'll show you how these people are tortured. Then he'll explain to you why they're there. And you've got like people who are being boiled alive because they were like perverts or whatever. And then, or you have like where the rabbit will attack people who are liars. Like, you know, if this is where you go if you're a liar, and the liars will try to convince the rabbit to like free them or whatever. Like, I didn't do it, I swear. And the rabbit's like, no, you're a liar. And then he'll like beat the crap out of them with a mallet.
Animal torture hell, where all the animals, these cute, adorable little animals just eat people.
Yeah, it's like payback.
Payback, because they were awful to animals in their previous life.
So yeah, so like little things like that I think can be enjoyed by everybody. But you're not wrong. This is a tough anime to watch for people. Definitely. Yeah. But I love it. Like there's some stuff in it that's really funny. Like there's the scene where Hoozuki like visits the one home of the one little troll guy, and there's the two little kids.
Natsubi? Yeah, he's cute.
I can never remember their names, but the like the bluish white-haired little kid troll, they visit his house, and his mother is like this beautiful woman who kind of looks like him. And then there's like his father is like a spirit cart that like carries people.
Yeah.
Like he's just like a giant head attached to a wooden cart.
I think they're called Oboroguramas. It's a type of yokai. But yeah, that's also pretty interesting. What I love about that episode too is that they have hell. They introduce hell to like as if it's a business, and then also all the demons, they're not like bloodthirsty. They're just like they have like their own lives and families, and yeah, I think that's also kind of interesting.
And you get to see some like culture of inside of a Japanese home in that episode because of the way that Hoozuki behaves, and
yeah.
And then when they tell him to make himself at home, and he like takes it literally.
He does.
And he's like laying down real impolitely on the futon with like empty bowls of food all around him and stuff, which you know you'd never do if you were a guest. Yeah, reading with like Pocky in his mouth or whatever it was. And so little cultural tidbits like that of, you know, how he was before and after they like gave him permission to be, you know, relaxed or whatever. It's pretty fun. And the goldfish flowers. Oh.
I'm curious where those came from. That's one of the only things I like. I wonder if they just made this for the anime, or if this is like from something, because I don't know. I don't know where they came from, but they're great. I love them. I want one.
You can probably buy a toy of them, I'm sure.
They do. They sell. There's actually one that's powered by like solar, where it will just like sway when it's like in the sun.
Oh, but does it scream like in the anime?
Oh gosh, I hope so.
What is he feeding them at the end of the anime?
I think he was just giving them alcohol. Wasn't it? Sake?
It was sake? Yeah, and they're all
they're
like a million of them.
Drunk. Yeah.
And I also noticed.
I was gonna say little Zashiki Warashi little children. They're like making the faces too and screaming with them.
Yes.
I love those.
Yeah.
I love those too. Nico
Yeah.
and Ichiko.
Absolutely. And there is like in that scene where he's in Kodama's family house, they're actually eating some of those goldfish flowers in the stew that they cook. Mm-hmm. It's really weird.
Yeah, in season 1 too, he grabs like the winner of like the last year's contest and like whips it on a table and like creates like sashimi out of it and serves it to Satan. That's another thing I like, is that in this, it isn't just about Japanese hell. They like introduce like every hell. Like there's like, they introduce Satan, they introduce like Anubis, and I know there was another one, I can't remember who, but yeah, I thought that was cool too.
I was a little bummed out that in this season, in the episode with the snowball fight, they never really finished the episode. Do you recall that?
Yeah.
The fight, you don't ever find out who wins. Hoozuki, I presume Hoozuki would win because he's basically
of course.
he's unbeatable, right? But like, but it was like they were actually having a contest, and he climbs up the mountain using his like frozen bananas as like climbing tools, and but then they just end it. It doesn't. It just ends out of nowhere. Like I thought that was a little weird.
I think that was one of the weaker episodes because I also don't remember how that ended. I think he won though, but I can't remember.
No, I mean, like I watched it just a few hours ago, and basically
true.
it's left completely open ended because there's the hero from the frozen hell that's a good fighter, and he's whooping ass, and then there's Hoozuki, and Hoozuki's kicking ass too, and then they fight a little bit, but neither of them land like a clean hit on each other, and then Hoozuki climbs up the rock wall, and they're talking about how he can't leave the area, he can't leave the fighting area, or he'll be disqualified. And he's like, "Screw that! Your rules are bullshit. They're not strict enough." And he makes the rules harder on the people, and he's like throwing icicles at them from like up on top of the cliff. But then they end it. They don't really resolve the fight. So, which is weird because there was that side plot about how the frozen hell was going to secede from the other hells, because if they were able to win the snowball fight, they could use that by saying that the other hells are weak, that we're seceding because we're strong or whatever. But then they just drop it. They don't really follow it up at all. What other kind of delightful notes do you have, Mandy?
What other notes do I have?
Mm-hmm.
Let me look. I had some notes on like the first episode with Izanami, because that's a very common story, and I think people may recognize that from other animes. Especially like if you watch Noragami season 2, also there's that whole part with Izanami where it goes into like Japanese mythology of creation. And let me see.
Yeah, Izanami and Izanagi are one of the most famous stories in Japan's history. I think almost everybody in Japan knows the folklore of those two, because I mean that story is essentially how Japan was created. Mm-hmm. So that's a very, very important folklore, and it's like it's this anime is kind of like you get it or you don't. If you can appreciate the folklore, you get even more out of the comedy because it just fits and feels so right. But if you don't understand any of the folklore, then you're just totally lost. So,
yep,
a la Kazuo.
Just like me.
Which isn't bad. I mean, that's not your fault either.
No,
it's just...
I think, and I don't know if it necessarily reflects poorly on the show itself. It's just, but I don't know. So I'm a little torn because the show is obviously good if, like, big if, you get like where it's coming from. Like if you are in that world. If you're not, then it's not good. So like, does that affect the overall quality of the show then? If you have to be a very specific type of person to enjoy it?
We have to consider the target audience, because I mean, this was made by a Japanese studio, and Japanese are going to know these stories. I mean, I'm sure they weren't
True.
like, let's not put this in here in case Westerners don't get it.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point.
But
so I don't have a whole lot more to say about the show. I think that it looks great. I think that it looks exactly how it's intended to be. I wouldn't say the animation is incredible, but it's not like a fighting anime or anything like that. So there's not a lot of fast movements or things. It's mostly just like standing around talking and making jokes. Mm-hmm. So
I would also say if you liked season 1 and you're interested in season 2, you do get more stories on like Hoozuki, like how he came to hell and his impact on hell and like his angsty teenage years and how he came into like a feud with the beast Hakutaku, the pervert. And so you get a little bit more backstory on some of the characters. So that's cool.
So, I mean, as I said, I don't have a whole lot more to say about it, so I'm prepared to like give it the final score. I feel like I need to go to our website and pull up the old score, because whatever score we gave the last one, I feel like I need to give this one as well, since they're...
Yeah, that would make sense because nothing has really changed much.
Right, they're about as similar in quality and style as any two seasons of anime are. So I'm gonna look up the if I can even find it. I'm gonna look up the score from the other season, and while you go ahead and give your score. How about that?
Oh, my score? Well, this is my first time going on like a 5-point scale. I think on my anime list I gave it an 8. So what would that be in 5? Like
that would be a 4.
Would it be a 4? Let me do a 3.5. Is that cool? Can I do points?
You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, 3.5.
So I think I'm going to give it a 4, because I think that's what we gave the prior season of it. So it kind of makes sense that we would give this one a 4 as well. So I'm going to give it 4 screaming goldfish flowers out of 5, because one of them might be sleeping.
Yeah.
So
they're terrifying.
They're very when they're not screaming, they're cute, and when they are screaming, it's like I want to hold my ears and hide.
It's like they're screaming in like eternal pain.
So I think it's going to round up to a 4 on the overall on the show. And I think honestly, people, if you like Japanese mythology or just mythology in general, and if you like comedy, you'll like the show. Just be aware that you might
not know anything about what's happening.
I would say that if you don't know any Japanese history, you're probably going to miss half the jokes.
Yes.
So some of them I think you can get. Some of them you'll find funny even if you know nothing about Japanese mythology, but some of them you will miss entirely, and you'll be like, why is that funny?
Yeah.
You know, well, meanwhile, the Japanese people are losing their shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So actually, that would be funny. Would be to have a side-by-side of like a crowd of people. One's English, one's American people, one's Japanese people, and you play the same episode at the exact same time.
Right.
And you see their reactions like back to back, and like I'm sure there will be moments where the Japanese people lose their minds.
That'd be great to watch.
That would be funny.
That would be. All right, so cool. So that's the review of Hoozuki no Reitetsu.